Alex had never imagined that one wrong move could change his life forever. He was an explorer and a cultural researcher, always curious about planets, alien species, and their traditions. When he received an assignment to study the planet Zarathis, he was excited. The planet was known for its advanced technology, intricate social structure, and most importantly, its strict traditions. Among those traditions, one was so sacred that even a simple gesture could bind a human to the royal family. Forever, Alex had read about it but never truly believed he would encounter it. Zarathis was breathtaking. Cities floated in the sky, connected by glowing bridges, and massive towers spiraled toward the clouds. Alien beings moved gracefully, their skin shimmering in different colors depending on their emotions. Alex's translator device buzzed softly, translating their melodic speech into human words. Every corner of the city felt alive, filled with energy and mystery. He was escorted to the royal palace, a structure of silver and crystal that gleamed under the twin suns. The palace doors opened, revealing Queen Seraphina, the ruler of Zarathis. She was taller than any human, her presence commanding attention. Her skin shimmered with a deep violet hue, and her eyes glowed softly like twin stars. Alex had expected grandeur, but nothing could have prepared him for her aura of authority. The day's events were simple at first: introductions, a tour of the palace, and explanations of Zarathis culture. Alex listened carefully, taking notes and asking polite questions. Everything seemed normal. Then, suddenly, the court began a ceremonial procession. Servants and nobles entered the grand hall, carrying glowing artifacts and singing in harmonic tones that echoed off the palace walls. Alex, eager to observe, followed the crowd to the center of the hall. He had studied the Zarathis court ceremonies in books. He thought he understood the gestures, the bows, and the signs of respect. But one crucial piece of knowledge had escaped him: the gesture of bonding. Among the Zarathians, this gesture was not just a sign of friendship. It was a sacred, lifelong commitment. Performing it before the queen was a binding act. It was forbidden for outsiders to use it. Alex, in his nervousness and fascination, mimicked the movements he had seen the nobles perform. He raised his hand slightly, rotated his fingers in a pattern he thought respectful, and nodded politely. At that exact moment, a collective gasp echoed through the hall. All eyes turned to him. The air felt heavier, almost electric. Queen Seraphina's glowing eyes fixed on him. "You have performed the gesture of bonding," she said. Her voice was calm but carried weight that made Alex's heart pound. "Do you understand what you have done?" Alex froze. I thought it was a respectful gesture," he stammered, realizing the enormity of his mistake. His heart raced and his palms were sweaty. "I didn't know it meant commitment." The queen stepped closer, her presence making the room feel smaller. "The gesture is not a simple greeting, human. By performing it before me, you have bound yourself to me according to our laws. It is not reversible." Alex's mind raced. Bound, married, with a gesture? His eyes widened. "Wait, that's a serious law, right? I didn't mean it." But the court had already begun murmuring. The nobles whispered among themselves, some nodding in agreement, others shaking their heads in shock. Outside, the humans' knowledge, there was no room for excuses. Traditions of Zarathis were absolute. I am Alex," he said, trying to calm the tension. "I am just a visitor. I study your culture. I didn't intend—" The queen raised her hand slightly, silencing him. "Intentions do not matter. The law is clear. You have performed the gesture. Therefore, according to Zarathis tradition, we are now bonded. You will remain in the palace and we will prepare for the union." Alex's jaw dropped. "Union? You mean marriage?" His voice was a mix of shock and disbelief. The words felt impossible. This was not in any guidebook, any training, any preparation he had ever had. "Yes," said Seraphina, her expression unreadable. "The gesture of bonding is sacred. It is not something to take lightly. By performing it, you have chosen to accept this path. Alex's thoughts swirled. How could a single gesture tie him to an alien queen? How would he survive living in a palace with beings who saw life, love, and duty so differently? And yet, he could see the curiosity in Serafina's eyes. She did not seem angry, only intrigued. Perhaps she wanted to see how a human would respond to such an unexpected situation. I need to understand your world better, Alex finally said, trying to regain composure. Maybe there's a way to adapt? The queen nodded slightly. You will have your chance, but understand this. The laws of Zarathus are not like those of humans. Once bonded, there is no separation unless both parties agree. You must learn our ways quickly, or the consequences will affect more than just you. The court began preparations immediately. Servants approached Alex with ceremonial robes and accessories he barely understood. He was to remain in the palace while the rituals were arranged, giving him time to learn Zarathus traditions, but also leaving him trapped under constant observation. As Alex moved through the palace halls, he marveled at the technology around him. Holographic projections floated above tables, robotic assistants glided smoothly across polished floors, and gardens floated mid-air, supported by unknown forces. He realized that life on Zarathus was both beautiful and complex. Every detail was connected to a long-standing tradition, and he had just inserted himself into the most sacred part of that structure. That night, Alex lay in a guest chamber, staring at the ceiling made of crystal panels reflecting the stars. His mind kept replaying the moment, the accidental gesture, the queen's intense gaze, the whispers of the court. One small movement had altered his life completely. Yet, amid his fear and confusion, a spark of excitement grew. This was the unknown. This was the adventure he had always sought. The question now was not just how he would survive this strange world, but how he could thrive. Perhaps with courage, intelligence, and a little human ingenuity, he could navigate the impossible and even turn a mistake into something extraordinary. Tomorrow, his lessons in Zarathus culture would begin. And with them, the first steps toward a bond that neither he nor the queen could have predicted. The morning sun of Zarathus spilled through the crystal windows of the palace, painting the halls in shades of gold and violet. Alex awoke still, overwhelmed by yesterday's events. He was now officially bonded to Queen Serafina, and the palace felt both magnificent and intimidating. Every corner reflected careful design, from hovering walkways to floating gardens that shimmered in the light. A soft chime announced the arrival of his first tutor, an elder Zarathian named Leora. She had skin that glowed faintly blue and eyes that seemed to see more than the physical world. She smiled warmly at Alex, though her expression carried the weight of centuries of tradition. "You will learn quickly," she said, her voice melodic and calm. "Or you will struggle." Alex swallowed nervously. I want to understand. I don't want to make another mistake." "Good," Leora said. "Understanding is the first step. The bond you share with the queen is sacred. It is not simply words or gestures. It is actions, respect, and knowledge. Begin today." The first lessons were simple yet strange. Alex learned the basic etiquette of Zarathus, how to move gracefully, how to speak without unintended offense, and how to handle ceremonial objects that floated with magnetic energy. Every motion had meaning. One wrong step, one misused word, could upset the balance of a ritual. Alex's human awkwardness became apparent immediately, but he laughed at himself quietly. Humor, he realized, might be his greatest ally here. After several hours, Alex was summoned to the queen's private chamber. Serafina sat upon a platform that seemed to float in mid-air, her violet eyes observing him with quiet interest. "Have you begun your lessons?" she asked. Her voice carried authority but lacked anger. "Yes, Your Majesty," Alex said, bowing slightly in the manner he had been taught. "It's very different from anything I've seen." She tilted her head. "Different does not mean wrong, but you must adapt quickly. You are now part of our traditions, whether by accident or choice. You will be tested. Alex's heart raced. Tests? He hoped they were not physical. He was not trained to leap across floating platforms or wield alien tools. But he soon realized that the first test was mental. Serafina presented him with a puzzle, a three-dimensional holographic map of the palace gardens that shifted and changed. He was to trace a path from one floating island to another without touching the energy barriers that protected sacred plants. Alex studied the map carefully. His human mind worked differently from Zarathian's. While they approached problems with ritualized precision, he relied on observation, intuition, and trial and error. Slowly, he traced the path, avoiding the barriers. He stumbled a few times, but each time he learned from the mistake and corrected it. Serafina watched silently, her expression unreadable. Finally, Alex reached the final island. The map stabilized. A small smile appeared on Serafina's face. You used reasoning, not ritual. That is unusual, she said. But effective. You passed the first test. Alex exhaled in relief. Thank you. I guess humans do think differently. Indeed, she replied. And that may be your strength. Over the next several days, Alex's lessons expanded beyond etiquette and puzzles. He learned about Zarathis technology, from their floating energy. The sun rose over Zarathis, casting golden light across the floating towers of the palace. Alex felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today he would face the tests of bonding, a series of trials designed to measure compatibility between bonded partners. In Zarathis tradition, these tests were both physical and mental. Passing them would earn the respect of the court and, more importantly, build trust between him and Queen Serafina. Serafina awaited him in the ceremonial chamber, her violet skin shimmering in the sunlight. She did not smile, but her eyes reflected curiosity. The tests are not meant to punish, she said. They reveal how well you understand each other, how well you can work together, and for a human they will be challenging. Alex swallowed. I'll do my best, he said. He was determined to show that humans could rise to any challenge, no matter how strange. The first trial was the trial of balance. They were to cross a series of floating platforms over a glowing energy field. The platforms moved unpredictably, requiring careful timing and cooperation. Serafina led the way gracefully, while Alex's human reflexes lagged slightly. He stumbled once, almost losing balance, but quickly adapted, using his hands to steady himself. Serafina glanced back at him. You are slower than I expected, she noted. I may be slower, Alex admitted, but I can think differently. Watch this. He calculated the timing, took a small leap, and landed safely. His solution surprised even the experienced queen. Together, they crossed the final platform, their movements synchronized through observation and trust. Next came the trial of mind, a puzzle designed to test communication and intuition. A holographic maze appeared, shifting constantly. Serafina and Alex were each placed at opposite ends, tasked with finding a path to the center. They could not speak, only use gestures to indicate direction. Alex frowned. Zarathians had studied these puzzles for years, but humans had a different way of thinking. Instead of memorizing the maze, he watched the patterns, noticed repeating movements, and developed a strategy. He gestured carefully, signaling a path. Serafina followed his cues, and together they reached the center faster than expected. The court gasped. The human uses instinct and logic differently, one elder whispered. And it works. The third trial was the most unexpected. Trial of empathy. They were presented with holographic images of Zarathians facing emotional dilemmas, family disputes, cultural misunderstandings, and personal fears. Each was asked to offer advice that showed understanding and care. Alex listened carefully, asking questions and considering emotions he did not fully understand. He drew on human experiences, how people comfort each other, how trust is built, and how creativity can solve problems. Serafina observed silently as he gave thoughtful responses. "You do not speak like a Zerathian," she said afterward, "but you see the heart of the problem. That is, valuable." By the end of the day, Alex was exhausted, but exhilarated. He had survived trials that no human was expected to pass so easily. More importantly, he had shown Serafina that humans could think differently and contribute meaningfully. After the trials, they walked through the floating gardens in the evening. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly around them, reflecting their tired but satisfied expressions. Alex looked at the Queen. "I didn't know humans could do these things either," he admitted. Serafina smiled faintly, a rare expression for her. "Humans are unpredictable, but perhaps that is why your bond with me is unlike any other. You do not follow tradition blindly. You adapt, you think, you act. That is admirable." Alex felt a warmth of pride mixed with relief. He realized that the trials were not only for the court to judge him, they were also for him and Serafina to understand each other. Each challenge required cooperation, patience, and trust. They were learning to function as a team, not just as bonded partners, by accident. Later that night, Leora came to his chambers. "You have done well," she said. "The court is talking. Some are impressed, others still skeptical. But you have shown one truth. Humans are capable of surprising even the most experienced Zerathians." Alex smiled. "I just hope Serafina sees that this can work, that we can really connect." Leora nodded. "The bond is not only about tradition. It is about understanding, respect, and cooperation. Keep learning, and you may turn a mistake into something meaningful." Alex thought about the first day he arrived, the accidental gesture, the fear, the shock. Everything had begun with one small mistake. But now, after the trials, he felt a sense of purpose. He was not just a visitor anymore. He was part of something bigger, a connection that could change both his life and Serafina's. As he drifted to sleep, he felt a quiet determination. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and perhaps the first real signs of friendship, or even something deeper. The human mind was curious, inventive, and capable of empathy, and Alex was determined to show that those qualities could thrive even in the most alien and traditional of worlds. He realized that the greatest adventure was not only surviving the court, but learning how to build a bond that was genuine, meaningful, and, against all odds, beautiful. The morning light of Zarathis filtered softly through the palace, reflecting off the floating crystal panels. Alex felt more comfortable than before, but the weight of his bond with Queen Serafina still pressed on him. The trials had shown him his human ingenuity mattered, but now came the challenge of understanding her world more deeply. Serafina was waiting for him in the garden. Standing among the floating bioluminescent plants, she motioned for him to follow. "Today you will learn not only our customs but the reasons behind them," she said. "To bond with me is to understand my people, and that requires patience." Alex nodded, adjusting the ceremonial robes that still felt slightly heavy on his human frame. "I am ready," he said. "I want to understand." Their first stop was the Hall of Records, a massive chamber filled with glowing archives. Each scroll, hologram, and crystal recorded centuries of Zarath's history, culture, and knowledge. Alex was amazed. Humans had libraries, yes, but this was alive. The records responded to presence, showing information that adapted to the reader's understanding. Serafina led him to a holographic display of the gesture of bonding, the very gesture that had caused their accidental connection. She explained its origins, how it had been a symbol of trust, sacrifice, and cooperation for thousands of years. "It is not simply a ritual," she said softly. "It is a promise, one that must be respected." Alex listened carefully. "I understand now," he said. "I acted without thinking, but I want to honor the meaning behind it." The Queen nodded. There was no anger in her voice, only a quiet approval. "Intent is important, but learning to act with understanding is more important. This is what will strengthen our bond, Next, they went to the floating laboratory, where Zerathians developed their advanced technology. Alex marveled at the glowing machinery, energy conduits, and devices that responded to thought alone. Serafina showed him how her people balanced tradition with progress. Every invention had a purpose, yet every action respected centuries-old customs. You humans often separate tradition from innovation, she explained. Here, we combine them. We do not break what came before, but we find ways to improve it. Alex thought of Earth, where progress often ignored history. He smiled. That's actually smart. You respect the past, but you still move forward. The day continued with lessons in language nuances, etiquette, and communication with the court. Alex began to notice subtle signs: a tilt of the head, a slight change in skin glow, or a pattern in tone that indicated emotion. Humans rarely communicated this way, yet Zerathians relied on it completely. Serafina watched him carefully. You learn quickly, she said. Your human mind notices things many Zerathians overlook. That is why your bond is unusual. You see not only what is done, but why it is done. In the evening, they walked through the floating gardens again, the glowing plants reflecting their silhouettes. Alex broke the comfortable silence. I didn't know much about your world when I came here. I thought I could just follow instructions, but it's more alive than I imagined. Serafina's eyes glowed softly. Life is not just the body or the mind, Alex. It is understanding, respect, and harmony with all that surrounds you. Humans often see life differently, yet perhaps your perspective is useful, Alex grinned. Useful? I'll take that as a compliment. She allowed herself a small smile. It is. Later, Leora arrived with a new challenge. The court will observe your bond tonight. You and the Queen will participate in a demonstration of cooperation. This is not a test of skill, but of understanding. Can you work together in ways that show respect, trust, and thought? Alex nodded. I think I can. That evening, the palace hall was filled with glowing observers. Zerathians from every corner of the planet had gathered. A complex puzzle appeared in the center of the hall, a floating mechanism that required two beings to operate simultaneously, synchronizing both thought and movement. Alex and Serafina studied it. He considered the problem differently than the Queen. Humans relied on instinct, improvisation, and observation. Zerathians relied on tradition, careful planning, and subtle cues. Together, they moved, communicating through gestures and understanding rather than words alone. Step by step, they aligned the mechanisms, corrected small errors, and guided each other. Alext H. The morning sun of Zerathis rose slowly over the floating city, painting the towers in soft gold and violet. Alex woke with a sense of determination. The previous days had taught him the ways of Zerathis and the meaning behind the bond with Queen Serafina. Now it was time to face a new challenge, one that would test not just skill but courage, creativity, and the ability to work as a true team. Serafina met him in the palace courtyard. Her violet skin glowed softly under the twin suns. Today you will face a test beyond the palace, she said. It is not a ritual, but a real problem, something that requires both human and Zerathian ingenuity. Alex's curiosity piqued. A real challenge? What is it? The outer gardens of Zerathis have a disturbance, Serafina explained. Some of the floating islands are losing stability. Plants and structures are at risk. The elders wish to resolve it without harming the ecosystem. You and I must work together to stabilize them. Alex's heart raced. This was no puzzle or controlled trial. It was a real situation with consequences. He glanced at the floating islands glowing softly in the morning light. Let's do it, he said, feeling both nervous and excited. They boarded a small levitation platform, moving toward the unstable islands. Serafina guided him carefully, explaining the principles of Zerathis energy flows, magnetic fields, and plant preservation. Alex listened closely, absorbing every detail. His human intuition soon complemented her precise instructions. When they arrived, the islands wobbled gently, some tilting dangerously. Plants glowed weakly, signaling distress. Serafina began stabilizing the energy conduits using her Zarathian techniques, while Alex examined the structure. He noticed subtle cracks and misaligned energy nodes that her eyes had missed. "Try this," he suggested, pointing to a pattern of energy alignment. "If we adjust these nodes slightly, the weight will redistribute, and the platforms will stabilize faster." Serafina studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Human thinking. I did not consider that." Working together, they adjusted the energy flows. Alex used improvisation, testing angles and observing reactions, while Serafina applied her precise knowledge. Slowly, the floating islands steadied. The glowing plants brightened as energy flowed smoothly once again. "Remarkable," Serafina said, smiling faintly. "You humans find solutions in ways we do not always see. Your creativity is valuable." Alex grinned. "Thank you. But I couldn't do it without you." As they returned to the palace, word spread quickly. The court and the elders watched their success, impressed by how a human and the queen had resolved a real problem through cooperation. Some skeptics whispered, "Perhaps humans are more capable than we imagined." Others remained cautious, but all recognized the bond between Alex and Serafina had grown stronger. That evening, Alex and Serafina walked through the floating gardens, now glowing brightly under the twin moons. The challenge had been successful, but it had also shown them how much they could learn from each other. "Humans are different," Serafina said softly. "You see possibilities where we see rules. You act without fear of breaking tradition, yet your solutions are often better." Alex laughed quietly. "Maybe it's just instinct, or maybe humans survive by adapting. We have to." She tilted her head, studying him. "Adaptation. Yes, that is a strength. I can see now why your bond with me is unusual. You are not just part of Zaratha's tradition. You enhance it." Alex felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that what had begun as an accident, the forbidden gesture, was now something meaningful. It had brought him into a world far beyond his own, where his ideas, courage, and empathy mattered. Later that night, Leora approached Alex with a serious expression. "The court is impressed, but some remain wary. They watch closely to see if the bond strengthens or falters. You must continue to show understanding, respect, and cooperation. Your human qualities are admired, but you must balance them with knowledge of our ways." "I understand," Alex replied. "I'll do my best. I want to prove that humans can contribute, not just survive here." Days passed, and Alex continued learning while strengthening his bond with Serafina. They worked together in the palace, solved minor problems, and shared quiet moments in the floating gardens. Each conversation, each shared task, deepened their connection. Alex began to see the queen not just as a ruler, but as a person with thoughts, feelings, and dreams. One afternoon, a minor crisis arose. A group of floating artifacts from the royal archive became unstable, threatening to damage the palace. Serafina and Alex rushed to the scene. Using a combination of her precision and his improvisation, they stabilized the artifacts without incident. The court observed in amazement. "You humans are unpredictable," Serafina said afterward, "but in ways that are helpful." Alex laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment." By the end of the week, something had changed. The court, once skeptical, began to show respect. Alex's human perspective had proven valuable in unexpected ways. More importantly, the queen and he had developed mutual trust. The bond was no longer simply ceremonial. It was genuine. That night, Alex sat in his chamber, thinking about the journey so far. From a simple, accidental gesture to overcoming real challenges. He had learned that humans could thrive anywhere, even in the most alien and traditional worlds. With patience, creativity, and understanding, he had begun to build a meaningful connection, not just with Seraphina, but with the culture of Zarathus itself. He realized the truth. Sometimes mistakes lead to the greatest opportunities. And sometimes, human qualities, curiosity, courage, and adaptability, can transform even the strictest traditions into something extraordinary. As he drifted to sleep under the glowing stars of Zarathus, Alex felt ready for whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but he was no longer afraid. He was a human in an alien world, making a difference, one thoughtful action at a time. The twin suns of Zarathus rose over the floating palace, filling the sky with golden and violet hues. Today was no ordinary day. Alex felt a mix of anticipation, excitement, and a quiet nervousness. After weeks of lessons, trials, and challenges, the day had come for the final ceremony that would solidify his bond with Queen Seraphina. The palace was alive with activity. Floating banners shimmered in the light, bioluminescent plants glowed softly, and the court had gathered to witness the ceremony. Elders, nobles, and citizens alike had come to see the human who had unexpectedly become part of their most sacred tradition. Seraphina stood at the center of the grand chamber, her violet skin radiant in the morning sun. She looked at Alex with calm confidence, but her glowing eyes reflected a hint of warmth that had never been there before. "Are you ready, Alex?" she asked softly. Alex nodded. "I am. I've learned so much, and I understand more than I ever thought I could. I'm ready to honor the bond, not just because of tradition, but because of respect and trust." The ceremony began. A gentle hum filled the chamber as floating crystals aligned above them, casting shimmering patterns on the walls. The elders recited the words of bonding, words that spoke of trust, cooperation, and shared responsibility. Alex listened carefully, repeating phrases in his own way, feeling their meaning more than their sound. Then came the final step, the gesture of bonding. Alex had learned its significance in every detail. This time, he would perform it with understanding and intention. He raised his hand, mirrored Seraphina's graceful movements, and let the gesture flow naturally. The moment was electric yet peaceful, filled with the silent acknowledgement of mutual respect. The court fell silent. The floating lights above them glowed brighter, a sign that the bond had been accepted. Alex and Seraphina looked at each other, not as a queen and an outsider, but as partners who had learned, grown, and overcome challenges together. The elders stepped forward, nodding their approval. "The bond is recognized," one said. "The human has not only respected tradition, but has enhanced it through understanding, ingenuity, and cooperation." A wave of relief and joy washed over Alex. He realized that the journey had been more than learning rituals. It had been about showing that humans could adapt, think differently, and contribute meaningfully, even in the most alien traditions. After the ceremony, the palace opened to the citizens. Alex and Seraphina walked through the halls together, greeted warmly by Zarathians who had once been skeptical. Some elders smiled knowingly, acknowledging the human's unique role. Citizens whispered about how a human's creativity and empathy had helped stabilize floating gardens, solve complex puzzles, and bring harmony between tradition and innovation. Seraphina leaned slightly toward Alex as they walked. "You see possibilities where we see rules. That is why your presence here has been valuable." Alex smiled. "I've learned that it's not enough to just survive here. You have to understand, respect, and adapt. And sometimes, a human's way of thinking can help." They reached the central gardens where floating flowers glowed softly under the twin moons. Alex paused, looking at Seraphina. "I didn't come here expecting this. I never thought a simple mistake could lead to this," he said, motioning to the palace and the vibrant life around them. Seraphina's eyes glowed gently. "Life often brings surprises. What began as an accident has become something meaningful, not because of tradition alone, but because of understanding trust, and respect. You have shown that humans can adapt, create, and even transform what seems unchan.